will. Sorry, you were saying something, Mr.?
No, just I know last time we discussed condensing the minutes. It is significantly less than it usually is within what seems to be an executive summer B.
Yes, we have actually made some good headway in condensing the minutes. If you look at the if you look at the actual minutes, it's only about 7 pages, which is a big improvement on the 30 or so pages we were before. There's an attachment at the end, so I think we're So I note that you're pleased with the efforts to condense the minutes and make them more less discussion oriented and more decision oriented. All right, so now we move to item 7, and we're going to invite the officials. Well, we'll invite all the officials to come in, but we'll take the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport first, since we don't anticipate there will be as many questions in that regard. They're all here. Is that how you were in agreement to proceed in that manner? Okay. To take sport first, because I don't anticipate there will be as much, so we can excuse them quickly rather than have them sit through the longer session that I anticipate with the JUTC and the Ministry of Transport. Morning, morning, morning. All right, I assume these are the officials from the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, and its related agencies. Could I ask the permanent secretary or whoever the leader of the delegation is to introduce the members? We're going to take the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport first. So we're having them sit here, but everybody can join us. Everybody's welcome. So the Ministry of Energy, Transport, and Telecommunications can also sit. We're anticipating that the Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport will go much more quickly, and therefore we're going to deal with them first. Mr. Clark, you were saying something? All right, everybody's seated now? Thank you. I'm obliged to remind participants and guests that Parliament has a dress code that applies not just to members, but to those who are attending. And for gentlemen, it includes a jacket and tie. So I'm going to come down too hard on the young gentleman with the open neck shirt this morning, but I would ask senior members like Mr. Bernard to remind their teams that there is a dress code that applies to Parliament and its committees, and we would like that observed when.
Dear Chairman, that was an oversight.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So the way we usually proceed, I'm not sure, is it Mr. Not sure who is going to give the overview on the subject from the ministry, but we usually invite the ministry to give an overview, a 5 or 10 minute overview on the issue that we're inquiring into. And then we sometimes, through our consultant, give a advance notice of certain questions that we'd like answered. But then the floor is thrown open to members to further interrogate the officials. Either the leader of the delegation can answer or refer the questions to somebody more specific on their team. So is it Mr. Bernard?
Chairman.
Go ahead. And the mics, let me say, when you press the mic, you'll see a green light comes on. That's actually for the request. And when I acknowledge you, you'll see it turn red. That's when you speak. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you and to your members. We got the invitation to be here this morning, and we were asked to send in advance a report answering certain questions given to us, and those answers were duly sent yesterday, and we are here attending to speak to the issue of the resurfacing of our national stadium track, a project that started last year in and around February and ended in March, just before the commencement of the Boys and Girls Championships, which is an annual event. The ministry, Mr. Chairman, is attended today. Members here, Mr. Denzel Thorpe, who is my colleague, permanent secretary in the ministry. Mrs. Tracy Lindsay is our, for all intents and purposes, our principal finance officer. Mr. Adam Beckford is the general manager for the Sports Development Foundation. Mrs. Kimberly Brown-Edwards is our director of accounts. The gentleman behind me, Mr. Charles Reed, our director of project development. Mrs. Barbara Gooden is our senior director for projects. And that comprises the team, Mr. Chairman. So the ministry engaged in this process of resurfacing the National Stadium and also to give a different view in terms of the beautification of the track in the bold black, green, and gold, which represent our national colors. Mr. Chairman, the National Stadium is a legacy monument which has hosted numerous national and international athletic events, including track and field competitions, football matches, and cricket tournaments. The National Stadium is also used to host important national ceremonies, festivals, and cultural celebrations. And we note the independence activities, including our Grand Gala, honoring our Jamaican heroes and pivotal historical moments in our country. The National Stadium, Mr. Chairman, holds deep cultural significance and pride for Jamaicans across the country and across the diaspora. The use of National Stadium goes beyond its role in sports and doubles as a dynamic cultural hub, hosting concerts featuring both local and international artists, music festivals highlighting reggae and other genres, and cultural events that focuses Jamaica's rich heritage and diversity. Mr. Chairman, the National Stadium embodies more than just a venue. It's a symbol of the spirit, enthusiasm, tenacity, and cultural vitality of Jamaica. With its extensive history, diverse amenities, and welcoming environment, The stadium continues to be a major influence on the country's athletic, cultural, and social landscape. Mr. Chairman, one significant event is the annual Boys and Girls Athletics Championship, which last year had its 115th year. Within weeks, Mr. Chairman, of the hosting of the championships, several coaches, track and field experts raised several concerns about the state of the running track at the National Stadium. TVJ Sports report from Mr. Kean Rayner, notably sports journalist, interviewed Mr. Stephen Francis, who will be rated the track for its disrepair and an unattractive look early in January 2025. Mr. Glenn Mills of the Racers Track Club actually visited the ministry to complain about the damage to the track. In a letter emailed to the Honorable Minister on January 24, 2025, the head of Grand Slam Track, former double record holder Mr. Michael Johnson, declared the National Stadium track inconsistent and unsafe. A track assessment report from the Independent Sports Lab dated February 7, 2025, showed that the track surface at the National Stadium in its current state did not meet World Athletics requirements for its performance. It stated, and I quote, "The vertical deformation fails at every location that was tested." Not only was the health, safety, and performance levels of our young athletes under threat, the ability to attract international meets to include the pending Grand Slam track series on the surface was significantly undermined.
All right, Mr. Bernard, we could probably save some time because I don't think the concern of the committee was whether the track needed to be resurfaced. I think the concern of the committee was, having been resurfaced, why has it taken so long for it to be recertified? Or to be certified? This, I think, is the more concern. I don't think there was a question about whether or not it needed resurfacing when it was done last year. That was not the matter that detained us. It really was, having spent 57.7 million Jamaican, or 350,000 US, to resurface the track from approximately a year ago. Why have we not moved to get it certified? Because the concern was it could affect records that might be set, and whether they would qualify, etc., at various meets, including boys and girls champs. So if you need not detain yourself too long any further on the fact that it needed to be resurfaced. I think that is impatient of debate. So we could just go on into why it has taken so long post resurfacing to be certified or recertified, as the case may be.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for that clarification, and that is good news to the ears, that we are all on board as to the need for the track to have been resurfaced. Now, to your question, Mr. Chairman, the certification process is a very technical process governed by World Athletics standards. The persons that are experts in recertification of track are very few, and we counted just about 6 of them. Now, typically, it is the requirement, well, it is a standard operating procedure that when the track is being resurfaced or laid, that the testing commence just at completion. This did not happen in this instance, obviously because we had the Boys and Girls Championship close behind, and the issues that arise were so close to the major championship that we had to move quickly to resurfacing, and then we had to give some time after the Boys and Girls Championships and the Grand Slam track event for the certification process to be conducted. If you look at the letter that I outlined to you, the process of certification is a month-long process, and therefore the time to get the experts into Jamaica to do the certification would require us making the application, getting all the the issues in terms of contract issues in place, and that did not happen. When we were just about in the summer ready to do that, then we had, of course, the World Championships that took place, and the preparations that were needed in a World Championship year. So because of that, the certification could not be done. Post-September, when we had World Championships, the move was then to move to the certification, and then we had Hurricane Melissa. And so as it is now, we are in March. The contacts to the labs and to Recoton, who are the persons to do the preliminary works, to do all the testing, and then, of course, the lab that would do all the testing of the materials. All of that now, we are just about completing the process to have that done, and we expect that we'll have the certification exercise commencing after this Boys and Girls Championships in April of this year. Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. So you're saying of the over a year of the 5-year expected life will have expired before we get a chance to certify the track. But let me now throw the questions open, and I know Mr. Hines has indicated to me that he has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to Permanent Secretary Bernard and his team. I just want to know, prior to the relaying and the resurfacing, recoating of the track, 2025, who was which company had laid the track, maintained it, and had it certified up to July 2026?
The company is a German company called Regipol.
Okay. All right. So on what basis did you use a third-party contractor to repair or recoat the track, and not the contractors who would have done it before?
Well, the first invite to do the resurfacing was Regipol. And Regipol gave a quotation of 412,000 euros, which approximate at the time to about 75 million Jamaican dollars. Regipol could not do the work in time for Boys and Girls Championships. And so we had discussions with Grand Slam, and Recoton was recommended. Recoton came in at 350,000 US dollars, $55 million Jamaican, which was lower than Regipol. And Recoton gave its undertaking that they would work assiduously to get the track in place before Boys and Girls Championships. We could not risk the track being exposed as it is to our boys and girls. So we had to make that decision to move with Recoton.
All right. In your procurement process, is it just the value of the work that you consider, or do you consider the competence of the contractor that will do the work?
Competence, value for money, maintenance after the works have been completed are critical matters that you have to treat with when engaged in any procurement process. And that is exactly what we did. Recoton is, if you check their reputation, and we'd have done the profile on them, they have certified more tracks in the world than any other company, number one. And number two, they came to Jamaica, we met with them, we were assured, based on our due diligence and also meeting with them, that they were capable of laying the track. This track, Mr. Chairman, since it was laid, produced the fastest time in the 100 meters for the year, across the world. Nobody has run 9.77 in the world since it was run at the stadium by Kishane Thompson. And the Boys and Girls Championship that took place thereafter, there were numerous records that were run during that period of time. And the track has been hailed as safe and has performed at a high level. The maintenance issue, the contract that we have, require Recoton not only to train locals to be able to maintain the track, but also the warranty extends to them making regular visits to ensure that the track conditions are kept apace.
All right. Another question, Mr. Chairman. Based upon Mr. Bernard's pronouncement about the fastest time being run in 100 meters, is it that an indictment that the athletes aren't able to be recognized for such performance, given that the track is not certified? That's one question. And two, wouldn't it be very wise of the Ministry of Sports and Independent Sport Limited, whenever you're engaged in a contractor, that they would have been held responsible for having the track being certified before handing it over to you?
As I indicated, well, I don't think I indicated it, but the history of the certification of the track, in 2001, the track was certified 7 months after it was laid. It was not certified at the same time it was laid, because typically the process would not be completed at that time. So it took 7 months, right? I agree that the best thing is to have the certification done shortly and quickly thereafter. So I agree with you, Member Hines, in that regard. But I did indicate that the circumstances in a year of World Championships, also in a year where we had a devastating hurricane, would have impaired the best practice that we would want to have. Now, the best thing is to have Kishi and Thompson's time certified. And we are hoping that when the track is certified in April, that process can also be engaged. So it is not a process that is lost, that the time will not be recognized. But the track, when certified, there still is the opportunity for the time to be recognized.
Okay. And just for clarity for everyone, was the track resurfaced, or was it an overcoat on what was already there?
Track was resurfaced.
In its entirety?
Yes, that's the contract that we have.
That's the contract you have?
The contract we have is for the resurfacing of the stadium track.
So, on define resurface, they would have removed what was there and would have replaced it with new material?
I think it was I think they would have taken layers that were there. The layers that were compromised, they would have removed those and recoated it with a surface to ensure evenness, thickness, force reduction, vertical deformation, and friction, and to ensure the tensile characteristics that are required for tracks.
I just want to ensure that we're... So am I to believe that the definition that I have received of resurfacing is not removing the material that is there and putting down a new material, or is it that you're saying you could add on top of what is there and consider it to be resurfaced? Wouldn't that have been considered a repair or a recoating of the track?
Well, a recoating suggests to me some kind of color or something like that. I am saying that the surface was impaired before, and so the surface that was compromised had to be removed, and the new layers, which demonstrate the characteristics that we have here, would have now been laid on the track. So that's the process as I understand. I'm not an engineer,
no, man, that's
right?
fine.
But the process as reported to me is that.
Okay.
Just for clarity, before you go to the next question, want to understand, in the process of procurement and the supervision of the procurement of the contractor and the supervision, which agencies within the ministry are the technical experts on this? Is it the Sports Development Foundation, Independence Park? Is it where does the technical expertise reside within the ministry?
The technical expertise as it relates to the track would be at Independence Park Limited.
At Independence Park.
The procurement
process
expertise
would be supervised
would be in the Ministry
within
of Culture, within the Ministry of Culture.
So the process you made was a sort of, I don't know what you'd call this, a selective tender where you approached a particular supplier, attempted to negotiate, and then when that failed, you went on to a second. It wasn't a competitive process. As you described it, you started out with one potential supplier. They quoted a price which turned out to be higher than the second eventual supplier. But had you been able to negotiate within time and price, you would have proceeded with that based
We
on
would have
the
preferred
time
to,
pressure.
yes, we would have preferred to use the existing contractor because they would have understood all the merits. Their materials would have been already laid on the track, but we could not, given the time and also the price.
Sorry, go back to you. Sir.
Yes, thank you. On this report that I have received, number 2, item 2 says the resurfacing area was done under a tripartite agreement with Rekatan and, of course, Grand Slam. What role did Grand Slam play in this process?
All right, so Grand Slam track had an event that was carded for shortly after the track would have been laid. And so they had an interest in assisting us with negotiating the terms with Rekatan, and we did that. And also, given that we were in dialogue with them in relation to that meet, we had to ensure that they were also bound to the terms of the agreement. They also assisted us in having the price negotiated. And so there was a kind of agency agreement between them and Rekatan. And we benefited from that, and so we had to include them, as any good counsel would do, to ensure that they are bound by the terms of the contract as well. But the primary persons to do the work would have been Rekatan. So you could call Grand Slam in some ways some part of the project management team for the project. That's what I would call them. They were not the expert, but certainly in terms of negotiations and in terms of renaissance and so forth. Reconnaissance, sorry.
They were an interested party who played the role of a friend of the ministry to get the thing done in time.
No, not a friend of the ministry, because certainly I didn't know them before. And since in this instance, P.S.Tab and I are the ministry, we didn't know them before, so they would not be friends of the ministry.
I used it in a sense when they said somebody's a friend of the court, you know, somebody who can assist the court in getting to justice. In that sense, I use it, not in our personal friendship sense.
Yeah, but Chairman, I understand your question, and I would want to regard Grand Slam as having an interest to serve, because they had a meet that was publicized internationally. They had already committed resources to this event. When they came to inspect the track, they were alarmed at the state of the track, and therefore it was within their interest to ensure that the track was resurfaced, as it was in our interest. Okay. So I would just put them at that.
Any further?
Yeah, what is, since the track meet has been held, what is the nature of the relationship between the government of Jamaica and Grand Slam, noting that Grand Slam has had their challenges in holding other similar events around the globe as they would have advertised? And secondly, in terms of the payment of the 58 million that I'm seeing here, was Grand Slam a part of this payment package? And did they do any work in lieu of rental of the stadium? And can you give the Jamaican people assurance that the amounts paid here, 58 million, was from the coffers of the Jamaican people?
Yes, so the first question, I can assure the country that the 57,914,000?
57,784.
Was from the consolidated fund and from the taxpayers of Jamaica. All of that came from the ministry and from the Sports Development Foundation. And that was the complete amount that was paid to Grand Slam.
I want to interrupt you there because I'm not, you said from the consolidated fund. So the Sports Development Foundation doesn't, all its funds now come through the consolidated fund?
Well, the Sports Development General Manager is here. I've been speaking a lot. With your leave, Chairman, you may want to explain, Mr. Beckford, how the SDF is funded.
Good morning. your answer to your question is that it technically comes through the council fund now.
But is there still,
But it's still
the source of the original source of the funding is
through
from a
Chase.
tax on,
yeah, betting and
Gambling,
gaming,
yeah.
right? But it used to go directly to Chase, but it now goes council fund to Chase.
and then reallocate
Right,
it.
but some of the legislation, I'm not a legal expert, but some of the legislation still remains in place.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions?
Yeah, Mr. Bernard did not answer the nature of the relationship with Grand Slam. Current.
Well, we ended our relationship with Grand Slam Track after we paid them the sums that were due, and we have had no other relationship with them since then, as far as I know. None whatsoever.
So some of this 57 million was paid to Grand Slam?
As project managers, the monies were paid to Grand Slam.
Or the entire 57
Entire
million?
amount was paid to Grand Slam.
Okay. Members, have any further questions? Anybody else?
Just the last one, because I don't want to belabor Mr. Bernard and the team, but just to get a timeline as to when the track will be certified. I know you gave some reasons as to why it was not certified, and you stopped at the point of saying that you're in the process of re-engaging and doing testing. What timelines can we be guaranteed that the track will be fixed within this 5-year window that you have from your
Well, remember,
supplier?
I cannot give a guarantee, but I can give you an indication. Within the month of April, the tests of the track will be done. The lab work will also will be done thereafter. So when I consulted with Major Brown yesterday, who unfortunately is not here because of illness, he indicated to me that within 3 months thereafter, we should have the certification.
All right, and
Thank you, Mr.
if
Chairman.
no other members have any questions, then it's just left for me to thank Mr. Bernard and his team, and I would excuse you. I know you're all very busy persons, and I would then invite the Ministry of Energy, Transport, and Telecommunications, and I would invite you to come closer after the team from Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sports moves out. Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard and team. Mrs. Campbell Rochester, you want to ask your team to travel with their name tags? Commissioner Ellington, the last time we sat in this chamber, me in this seat and you over there, it was the Joint Select Committee on the Anti-Gang Legislation. And I think that was a productive, some productive work was done there, and I think we gave a great tool to law enforcement to continue to fight against gangs. I hope we have an equally productive morning. So welcome, PS. We had a good relationship from your days at OPM, at CDF, and we had a session. You had a session with the committee already, brief one, during the supplementary estimates, and we thank you for responding this morning. And I would just say we had a little bit of a hiccup in terms of our support from we had a change of committee clerk during the time, and I don't think the communication was as clear as it would normally have been. So what we typically do when we're inquiring into a subject is we invite the ministry or the agency, as the case may be, to give an overview. In this case, it's the National Rural School Bus Program. So we would ask, we typically would get a sort of status report from the ministry or agency, as the case may be. And then the consultant of the committee would give a heads up of some specific questions which they would ask you to come prepared to respond to. In this case, it seems you only the specific questions were communicated. And we didn't ask you to give a sort of status report. However, I know both yourself and Mr. Ellington are capable of giving that opening status report without, being given too much advance notice. So what I would ask you to do in terms of proceeding, could you turn off that mic? I think it was on from, yeah. In terms of proceeding, what I would invite you to do, first of all, PS, is to introduce your team, and then either yourself or whoever is best suited, give us a 5 to 10 minute sort of status report of the National Rural School Bus Program, and after that we will, if you within that you may cover the specific questions or not, and then I'll open the floor to members to interrogate your team with specifics. So over to you. Welcome again, and over to you, PS.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. So I have with me CTD Wilson Cross from the Ministry of Energy, Transportation and Telecommunication. I have Managing Director Owen Ellington from the JUTC. I have CTD Vanessa Williams-Smith from the Ministry of Energy, Transportation and Telecommunication. And behind me, I have Deputy Managing Director Marcia A. Hamilton, responsibilities for finance and corporate planning, and Deputy Managing Director Barrington Brown, engineering and technical services. And I'm Kedisha Campbell Rochester, Permanent Secretary Met.
And they're Deputy Managing Directors of the JUTC.
JUTC, sir.
Proceed.
I will give a background. However, Mr. Ellington will give the status update on, and I believe the background is widely known. However, having been asked, I will proceed. The National Rural School Bus was established as a policy initiative of the government of Jamaica. Having established that policy initiative, the JUTC was mandated to implement, manage the system, leveraging its operational experience in fleet management, scheduling, and routine planning. To support the program, buses were procured by the ministry at the time: Science, Energy, Telecommunication, and Transportation. That is before Science left the ministry. And subsequently retrofitted to meet safety and operational compliance standards, ensuring that they are fit for purpose within the Jamaican transport environment. The National Rural School Bus System was formally launched on September 8, 2025. Over to you, Managing Director.
Thank you, PS. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee. Good morning, everyone. At the risk of repeating just a few of the things PS has said, I'll give an operational update on the Rural School Bus Program. This program was launched in September of 2025 in Phase 1. And Phase 1 involves the acquisition, retrofitting, equipping, general servicing, and deployment of 110 buses to the JUTC fleet to be operated in the Rural School Bus Program. the JUTC established within its structure a depot known as the Rural School Bus Depot, and it has a management team, supervisory team, and a workforce in total of 154. It involved the recruitment, training, sensitization, and deployment of staff across 13 rural parishes that are served by the Rural School Bus Program. And the service has been in operation in phase 1A. It involved 60 buses. By the end of phase 1, which is phase 1B, there were a total of 110 buses operating daily in the fleet. In the early stages, our assessment of students being carried by the service based on a pilot project was that it carried 16,000 children per day. Later on, as we were able to deploy more buses in the fleet and reduce overcrowding, we are assessing that down to 14,000 children per day, operating 5 school days per week. And on weekends, the buses are taken out for scheduled maintenance, deep cleaning, etc. The service has been delivered free of cost to children up until the end of January. Since the beginning of February, we have commenced applying the electronic fare payment system, and that is in its infancy stage, so there are some issues we are contending with. We have received early feedback from the Ministry of Education on the impact of the service on student transport. We have been advised that there is a significant improvement in student attendance in rural schools, significant reduction in truancy. The safety reports have been very impressive so far. Students have been transported to and from school safely, and they now have a predictable, reliable, safe, and obviously affordable service that they can use. And that's the basic outline of the status in terms of phase 1 of the implementation of the rural school bus system. We'll take questions. Thank you, Chair.
I'd use the chairman's prerogative and just ask a couple of questions. But first, just for clarification, because your status review was very brief. You're saying there's a division within the JUTC that operates the school bus program or the rural school bus program as discrete from the regular JUTC operations?
That is correct, Chair. It's a depot. A depot.
A depot,
yes.
and a discrete staffing allocation.
That is correct. Chair.
So in the public bodies book, you showed a substantial increase in your costs, in your staff costs, and some anticipated costs in your revenue. Do you have broken out, and this was consolidated for JUTC, do you have broken out the financials for that discrete division within your accounts?
Yes, we do, Chair. PS has it in front of her. She will.
The PS, you want to just give us that then while you're here?
Thank you, Chairman. So while it is consolidated in the public books, for the salaries and wages of drivers, it is $630,415,032. For traffic, $50,465,650. For maintenance.
So hold on. For traffic, well, I'm not sure what you mean for traffic. What does for traffic mean?
Dispatchers.
Oh, dispatchers, okay.
Maintenance, $7,143,014. Driver incentive, $4,048,000. Other related cost, $114,697,641. And you'd see a total of $871,065,116 for the rural school bus program.
And that's the expenses and the revenues?
To date, it's 39,000.
No, you're giving me the figures for 26, 27, right?
But remember, it was free of cost.
No, for 26, 27. 26, 27 doesn't have any, I know 25.
Oh, projected.
Yes. I'm asking you, these figures you're giving me here now, are they for financial year 26, 27?
25, 26.
25,
we're at
26.
26, 27. 26, 27. Sorry, Chairman.
So for 26, 27, we're projecting expenses of 871 million. And revenues? Not material.
It's not material right now
Right.
because there's currently a low take-up of the cards for students. But currently what we have on record to date is $39,500.
Okay. I really would like you to tell us how this rural bus system fits in within the overall transportation policy. And it's hard to isolate one from the other. And at the risk of Mr. Clark saying I'm using my constituency as an example, but in deep rural areas like my constituency, the population density is very low. And it is challenging to maintain one transportation system, to have enough passengers to support one transportation system, much less to have two transportation systems. Because in these areas, students might represent between a third or over 50% of potential passengers to the general system. So could you locate in terms of how the rural student transportation system will integrate into the overall transportation system? And the second element of this question is many schools, many rural schools, Monroe, Manchester High, many of these schools have extensive dedicated bus systems already that bring students from, in the case of Monroe, from all different parts of St. Elizabeth, even as far as Mandeville. And how do you see this rural bus program integrating with the private bus operators that serve these schools now?
Chair, I would like to add to your question as it relates to the integration. I have a concern. My own constituency is very different from yours. There is not one bus that any school has. And most of my kids are on bike backs, sometimes 2, 3, 4 of them trying to get to and from school. So the rural bus system has been extremely beneficial for East Rural St. Andrew. Taxi operators, bus operators who are private go for higher income first. And I have seen for myself 30, 40 students packed in a little van in the back of the taxis, hanging out on a regular basis. Last year, we had an accident in Dublin where children coming from Louise Bennett Coverley School and St. Martin de Porres School, I visited them at UWI Hospital because all of them were packed in a private bus, and that private bus was not even properly licensed and the driver had no driver's license. So I hear sometimes the concern about a government-operated system of transport that is supposed to be a social good, a benefit to citizens of the country, where we're always talking about how the loss. we need to establish what is a reasonable loss, because a loss is what it is going to operate at. And particularly as it relates to our children, I, as a mother, find it very critical that we safeguard the well-being of our children at school, and we should not be looking at thinking for a moment that privatized arrangements should supersede what the government is doing for the children.
I notice you jumped the line of persons who might have questions. But I'd like to. Yeah, I was trying to turn on the mic for Mr. Ellington, but because everybody had on their mic at the time. But I'm trying to understand the policy. There may be different policies for different parishes, because there are different situations that exist across parishes and across constituencies. So I'm just trying to understand how in the national transportation policy, how the rural school bus system fits in, nationally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to the first question, the policy position of the Ministry of Transport, as outlined to us at the JUTC, is that the government intends to provide a safe, reliable, affordable mode of transportation for rural school children who were assessed to be disproportionately disadvantaged in terms of access to reliable services. And it was well known that in many rural parts, the services, irregular as they were very costly, and at times excluded children from boarding buses in favor of adults who paid more for fares. And so the rural school bus program is not intended to compete unfairly with private operators in the public passenger transport system, but instead to provide a service which closes a gap, an access gap for rural children. And so the experience we have had in running the service out there is that there's not much pushback from the private operators. In fact, there is a kind of understandable coexistence between the rural school bus and the private operators of PPV. And we are carrying the children in large number in a very orderly, reliable, safe, predictable way. And on occasions when private operators might consider it financially infeasible for running certain trips or running certain routes or operating at certain hours of the day, the rural school bus program is available and transporting the children along the routes at those times and in those circumstances. So I'm not seeing us competing against them. I'm seeing us actually complementing whatever services available out there, and at the same time increasing access to transportation for children. In responding to the question about the existence of dedicated bus services provided by some schools on contract with private operators, again, we are not displacing these, we are not competing with them. As a matter of fact, they continue to operate alongside the rural school bus program. The fact of the matter is that there were many children out there who are not accessing consistent, reliable, affordable, and safe transportation on a regular basis. And this is the gap that the rural school bus program is intended to close. Mrs. Onis's remarks are more commentary on a situation in a certain demographics. We understand that. One of the reasons why we are not able to fully serve those communities is because of the type of roads, the road conditions, and therefore in the next acquisition of buses for the program, we have actually earmarked a reasonable number of buses that are going to be of the smaller type and constructed, designed to mount those rural marginal roadways. So those are serious considerations which are being pursued. Thank you, sir.
And you seem to have anticipated that my question had something to do with me being against subsidies. I absolutely have no objection to subsidies. In fact, the entire JUT system is essentially 90% job subsidized. If you look at the budgets in the public bodies, for every $1 they collect in revenue, they lose $9. So it's a 90% subsidized system as it exists today, not just for students, but for every rider of the JUTC. So it is already effectively a 90% subsidized system. So I have a list of persons, and I just want to, because with everybody's mics on, it's difficult to, once I press on, it turns on everybody. So, right, but what happens is sometimes I'm turning off different mics.
So for the, yes, and Mr.
Well,
suggestion is a good one.
Morning.
All the persons who are representing should leave their mics on. That's the only limitation. So like Mr. Ellington, PS, just leave their mics on.
Yeah, but
But for here, it is in the order.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman always
Mr.
have
Chair.
an order.
I'm following what you said.
When I'm not here now.
You're on the floor, Mr.
So I
Clark.
don't trust
No,
chairman's
but
order.
we are
I
here to
don't trust
discuss
it.
the matter.
I don't trust it.
The
And my
mic-
experience is that he's biased. Yes, that's my experience.
Mr. Clark, please.
So
What
where we are now,
happened?
Mr.
You see,
Chair.
for example, now I'm going to the next mic. 2 mics have been turned on.
You probably
This
pressed
is
it
why
twice.
the way we have been producing.
You have to turn them on one at a time. So
No, I don't turn
for
them
you
on
to
one
have-
at a
no,
time.
So for you to have 2 mics on, it means you would have pressed twice.
You pressed twice,
Yeah,
yeah.
because all of them don't come
Once,
on
you
together,
only
Chair.
press once and it turn one mic
You know,
on
Mrs.
at each
Honis,
time.
we were
come on
having no
together.
problems in this committee
Then
in
what-
how
then
we
what
were
come on together?
proceeding. In all the last meetings, you were absent. We were proceeding on the basis that I was recognizing the members as they caught my eye, and there was no challenge.
No problem.
Right?
But I have been
When
to
you are in the
meetings
chair,
and I notice
you
do that.
run it. When I'm in the chair, I will preside.
But Mr.
okay?
Chair,
But
we
you
have
still
a
have to take this-
microphone
you still
system
have-
if
you
you're
still
going
have
to
to
do
take
that.
discussion,
Mr. Clark,
Chairman.
you are next on my list. Then
Thank
Mr.
you very
Newell,
much, Mr. Chairman.
and then
Mr.
Dr.
Chairman,
Dawes.
as you're well aware, even in the first world countries, public transportation is heavily subsidized at all times.
Mr. Clark, Mr. Chair, I would just like to know what system
you
we're
see-
operating. I don't just, Mr. Chair,
Mr.
listen to
Chairman, if
what
you
I have to
continue
say.
to press the
What
button more than
system are we
once,
operating
I
on?
don't. I
The
don't.
microphone system provides fairness.
Look, everybody is turning on their mics. Some people unintentionally turn off their mic. I'm proceeding. I'm recognizing members in this order, all right? I am now recognizing Mr. Clark, then it's Mr. Newell, Dr. Dawes, and Mrs. Honis, and then Mr. Williams. No, you are not the first person. Mr. Clark, please proceed. Your mic is on. You don't wish to speak anymore?
So yes, he said, not me. You must use the system of the mic because it shows fairness.
Mr. Clark, are you going to
You're not
speak
the
or
chair.
not?
So for the mic, it's fairness.
no, don't assist me. You're not the chair. Please. Please.
No, she's rude. Damn rude to disgusting.
You're proceeding, Mr. Clark? All right, Mr. Newell, Mr. Clark doesn't seem to intend to go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning to the team from the ministry. And
You didn't speak when your mic was on. Proceed, Mr. Newell.
right.
Well, you are accustomed to doing that to them, so, all right. Mr. Newell, please proceed. The mic was on, I recognized you, and you refused to speak. The mic was on, you refused to speak after I recognized you. You've lost your turn. You have lost your turn. Mr. Newell, please proceed.
Chair.
Mr. Chairman, sir, I will not give Mr. Newell the right to speak.
You don't give anybody the right to speak. You don't give anybody the right to speak.
That is not your right to give.
You don't give anybody the right to speak. You were before you were recognized, you refused to speak.
You as the chairman, rather than chairing the meeting, you have to turn over that question, one. And two, you're now trying to take away my right as a person to speak and give it to another member. No, Mr. Chairman.
I recognized you and you refused to speak. Now that your mic is off, you're ready to speak?
If you give me the right to speak, no. Before Mr. Newell, I will speak.
Chairman.
All right.
Thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in every country, including first world country, public transportation is heavily subsidized. More so, a situation as this where we are dealing with children. There are schools who, because of the situation that they had before, that they would have gone into private negotiation or agreement with private transportation to transport kids. That does not say that at this time that the government is putting in place a system that they will not gladly accept a situation as that. Mr. Chairman, when you take, for example, the western section of Jamaica, transportation to and from school sometimes is very dangerous. So, for example, Westmoreland, you have what you call the bike taxis. And that one bike that is to transport 2 persons at any given time will take 6, including 5 children and the rider. Mr. Chairman, that is not accepted, should not be accepted, but it's the reality. Now that the government is introducing a rural school bus system, I think we should appreciate and accept. There are going to be flaws, we can iron them out. Mr. Chairman, the private person is doing this for a profit. That does not say that the government should renege on their duties and say, okay, it is only for private people only. They have a duty to provide. When you look at schools in Montego Bay, high schools in Montego Bay, for example, in St. James, for example, in one constituency, South St. James, you have at least 3 high schools. Right now, or before the introduction of the rural school bus system, you also have some stories that you hear that is unbelievable. You have what you call, Mr. Chairman, no pocket D&M something. It is a story that I would have to tell you about it outside of this meeting. But Mr. Chairman, we must welcome the situation here now. I am asking.
Do you have a question, Mr. Clark, for the officials?
Are you aware, Mr. Chairman?
You have a question for me?
I am speaking through the chairman to the official, if you don't understand.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the technocrats that are here. Are you aware, Mr. Chairman, that since this rural school bus system has been introduced, that a lot of all that nuances have been cut out or minimized? I am somebody that is on the ground. I don't know about you. I am on the ground.
You're asking the officials?
I am asking you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, you're
you
asking
to
it
ask the
through me.
question.
Right, you're asking.
And I'm doing it the formal way, through you to the technical.
Right, and I don't know which one of the officials wants to respond to that. You see that.
Officials.
Answer that, yes, we're aware. A simple answer is yes, we're aware, and we have gotten some statistics from the Ministry of Education.
All right, Mr. Newell.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't turn the mic off. I'm still appealing.
It's okay, it's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just before, because, and if I have to establish it at every meeting, I will establish it at every meeting, Chairman.
You just made a hell of a statement for a long time.
No, but you're not going to be a bully in here. You know that already. You're not going to bully me.
Yeah.
So, Chairman, my questions will be based on 73. Will be based on 73A of the PAAC. I'm not here for any pony show, the horse and pony show with nobody. I am here to deal with the business of the people. And what 73A empowers this committee to do, which is to examine budgetary expenditure, to monitor expenditure as it occurs, and to inquire into the administration of the government to determine hindrances to efficiency. That is what I am here to do.
Well,
and so I have some questions for the ministry based on that. No, but before, Chairman, I think it's important that Jamaica knows that he doesn't represent what the sample size of parliamentarians is. He's extremely rude and brash and crude and vulgar. And that isn't necessary in a place like this, as a gentleman.
All right,
Chairman.
Let's go to the question. No, well, if you would keep quiet, we could conduct the work of the committee.
Chairman,
you spoke for like 5 minutes in a statement before I asked you for the question. Just allow Mr. Newell to lay the foundation for his question.
My mother watching, she wouldn't be proud of me talking while here I talking. All right, so the PS mentioned earlier, Chairman, that the ministry, so I support the ideals, a reliable, efficient public transportation system that is affordable and safe. It was mentioned earlier that the JUTC is implementing and managing the system, but that the ministry procured the buses. Is it the norm for does the ministry generally procure buses for the JUTC's fleet?
Definitively, yes.
So that
not only the rural school bus, but other buses in the fleet.
Was the JUTC consulted in terms of the decision on whether the buses would be new or used for this particular program?
No, they could not be consulted because it was an unsolicited proposal that the ministry received.
So the policy was in response to an unsolicited proposal? Yeah.
No,
was the policy in response to an unsolicited proposal?
No,
PS,
no,
don't
sir.
keep turning off your mic.
Yeah.
Just keep on your mic.
Okay, no.
So the policy was there ahead of the unsolicited proposal?
Yes, sir.
So the ministry had intended to implement a rural school bus system and to procure buses for same?
Yes, sir.
Was there any consideration of whether the buses to be procured would have been new or used for this system?
The consideration started out as being new. However, based on the unsolicited proposal, they were used buses, and we accepted that.
Would it have been prudent to, since the ministry has an agency that is in the business of managing a large fleet and dealing with the issues involved, would it have been prudent to get some advice from the agency before deciding whether new or used buses would have been, because an unsolicited proposal is not something that binds you. It is a proposal. So I just want to know whether it would have been prudent to get some advice from the agency that has the experience, institutional knowledge in terms of operating and maintaining large public transportation, large public transportation fleet.
What I can say at this point in time is that the JUTC assessed the unsolicited proposal.
was it always the intention of the ministry to roll out this program in September 2025?
I would not say given that timeline, but what I will say, it was always the intention of the ministry to roll out a rural school bus system. Actually, it was supposed to be rolled out from 2023.
So you were behind in terms of when you had intended to roll out?
Yes, sir.
So the unsolicited proposal, was any opinion sought from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, for example, which had experience implementing a used vehicle program for their fleet?
No.
In terms of the monthly cost of maintenance, has any study been done to see how that compares to the fleet that the JUTC has? So year one on acquisition of a JUTC bus, traditionally, has any study been done to see how the maintenance costs for this fleet compare to that?
I think you're talking about life cycle costs.
Yes.
But I'm going to invite Mr. Ellington, then I'm going to ask you to pause because you've gone through a number of parts to your question. So I'm going to ask you to pause after the life cycle costs, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Dawes and then Mr. Williams. In reformulating Mr. Newell's question, he wants to understand the life cycle costs of operating new versus used vehicles.
In understanding the life cycle, is there a study being done versus new versus old?
The answer to that is no, we're not doing one for comparison, but the fact is newer buses cost less to maintain in the initial years in the fleet. The older the buses get, it is the more that they cost to maintain on an annual basis, because you go now into scheduled maintenance, scheduled replacement or rebuilding of components. So it wouldn't be, you wouldn't get the best results by comparing the maintenance cost per year for brand new buses with 10-year-old buses.
P.S., you wanted to add
I wanted to make a point that it should be noted that we're not paying maintenance costs on the bus now. That is included in the contract.
For how long? For how long?
Up to March 31st of this
Of
month.
2026?
Yes, sir. So from the buses that have been here, been operating, we're not paying maintenance costs.
For the first year?
For the first year.
Mr. Newell, I'm asking you to hold the questions to the next round, and I'm going to Dr. Dawes.
Thank you, Chair. You know, unfortunately, in my past life as a trauma surgeon, I saw the effects of the casualties from bike taxis. So this is something that has been dear to me. And on further interrogation of why we couldn't find a solution to get kids and adults, and a member from St. James is correct. Sometimes you do have HERA. You do have 6 people coming to hospital after a 2-bike collision. But what we found out was that in many instances, the reason why people are using the bike taxis is because the roads cannot allow for cars or buses to go into those areas. Now, how can you, even if you're getting smaller buses, how can you solve for that issue with the bike taxis where it is the state of the roads why the people are forced to use bike taxis?
I think you're asking a reasonable question, but this is a multi-pronged approach in government. So it's not only the Ministry of Energy and Transport. We will have to do some consultation with the National Works Agency, looking at their road network. And based on my former, where I'm coming from, I know that consultations are currently happening now as to the amount of roads we have per kilometer. And that is something that has to be taken greatly into consideration, not with the Ministry of Transport alone. It has to be a cross-sector with ministries and how we move forward. So that question I could not answer immediately here, but if you want us to get a response as what will be done for schools that are located in communities that have no access via car or buses, and we can see, even we will have to do some consultation with the Ministry of Education. Will these schools remain? What will be the course going forward?
Okay. I understand.
And additionally, I want to point out, not to cut you, member, but that, you know, the Ministry of Education gives the route, provides the route to the JUTC.
That actually segues into my next question. What is the methodology for selecting routes? Do you have geospatial data? Are you taking into consideration migratory patterns? Is it a minimum number of students in a particular community where you would choose a route? And do you have pickup points or drop-off points where they would still have to take bike taxis or other private means of transportation when they're still taking these buses? Tell me about the routes.
The Ministry of Education provide the routes, and I can come back with further clarification as how the routes were chosen. But just based on my limited knowledge, I would think that accessibility is one. The amount of students that will be traversing the route could be a possible reason why they would have chosen the routes that they chose. There may be additional requirements. I could get that for you as to how the routes were chosen.
I think in my final question, Mr. Chair, I think that in your operations, you ought to have a dynamic assessment of the routes. We see where you can speak to the absolute number of children being transported, but are you solving a problem whereby you're taking the kids out of these unsafe vehicles? Or is it that they're using unsafe vehicles to get to a particular meetup point, and then they're counted in your numbers as being, rescued? So these are pertinent questions I believe that you should have, not just with the Ministry of Education, but find some other data points to see where your routes are and if it is sustainable, for one, and are you achieving your goals? Thanks.
Mr. Ellington, I think you could
assist
assist here because I think
respond to Member Dawes' question. The routes are determined through a process carried out in conjunction between the Ministry and the J Service Planning Department. It takes into consideration road conditions, distributed routes, designated pickup points, designated drop-off points to ensure that students from the far can be picked up and can arrive at school time for the start of vice versa. There is where the buses cannot go because of road conditions, and in those circumstances, children may have to disembark the bus and find another means of transport home, whether they walk home or they are picked up by parents or, unfortunately, resort to some other modality which was mentioned before. But as the roads are improved, and I must point out that one of the things that we did during what we called a route survey, after the routes were given to us, we did a route survey with all different sizes of buses, and that is how we determined that some buses could possibly operate on certain routes. We also made recommendation through our ministry to the ministry with responsibility for roads to repair some roadways, do debushing, patch potholes, and in all of that, we have come up with situations where routes that previously didn't have buses operating on them now have buses operating with due care, obviously, but there are certainly some other areas where the buses just cannot go. In the next tranche of buses that we intend to buy, there will be some buses that are much smaller than even the smallest one now in the fleet, and hopefully it can take children along those routes. Thank you, thank you.
It's no Mr. Williams.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Well, I have two questions, but just listening to your response to the member doors, I just have two additional questions to my initial two questions. So let me ask the two questions now emanating from the conversation with member doors. The program is an expanding program.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right. And therefore, I get from what you were saying that you are in constant dialogue with the Ministry of Education,
Yes.
the National Works Agency.
Yes, the municipal corporation, because some are parochial roads.
As you see the need for new routes and in the expansion of the program. So you're taking these things into consideration in terms of routes that are troubled, for want of a better term. You are looking to expand into these routes, but part of that requires conversation with other ministries. So you're saying that that is currently taking place?
Yes.
All right. My first question is, I'm not sure if you have it, so if you don't have it, no problem. But I see that you're expanding. In 2025, 26, 27, you're looking at, from your report that we got, 100 new buses. And then in the 27, 28, you're looking at an additional 100 buses. Now, do you have an idea what is the number of buses required to satisfy the existing routes?
And when you say, you're saying if you would provide all rural
All right, so
school, when you say satisfy, I'm trying to understand.
All right, so what
if
I'm
you were to
saying, there
completely
are-
replace the private system or just those that are underserved?
To fill
now?
the gap. To fill the
Filling the
gap.
gaps.
To fill the gap.
Approximately 750 buses when we do the study.
For the existing, not for the new routes now, for the routes that are currently existing. You
No,
would
so
need
Mr. Williams' question was, how many buses would you need to fill the gaps
the gap.
in the areas that are currently being
in
served?
the areas that are currently being served.
500.
500. Okay. But all right. So in the additional purchase, you are putting some of these buses to existing routes.
Right.
As part of filling the gap, and then you're opening.
And we're adding new
You're
routes.
adding into new
But some of those routes, we have to add smaller buses based on the terrain and the size.
All right, so my last question is I know you said that the maintenance cost was captured in the 2025-2026 year, in the purchase.
Right.
You have any idea? I know you provided a figure, but if you were to estimate the 2026-2027 maintenance cost, what would it be? Based on your operations now.
Yeah, I'm having trouble. I don't know if there's too many mics on.
It's 45,640,000 per month.
Just, Mr. Williams, there was a printed or a sheet circulated.
No, I saw that.
That's where the 45 million is coming from, I'm just telling you.
That was the amount captured in the purchase.
No,
or that's what you estimate to be
no,
currently.
As I understand, it's the amount that was actually spent, even though it was covered by the vendors.
The chairman is correct.
Okay, thanks.
I have Mrs. Hornis, but Mr. Morris' mic was Mrs. Hornis, then Mr. Morris. Mrs. Hornis?
Chair, after we're finished, I would want to move that we deal with some housekeeping issues.
That we what?
First question, is any specialized training afforded to the persons who drive and operate the school bus vis-a-vis what we would normally have utilized for the regular JUTC bus drivers.
Yes, yes, member.
Yes. So far more extensive training
Yes.
is done for those drivers. In terms of absenteeism, where either a driver just for whatever reason, not well, whatever, just has not turned up, what is the level of reserve that you have on hand to be able to still function at the optimal level? That's in terms of the drivers. And in terms of the buses, do we have any facility to be able to just drop another bus in the system if one goes down? What is the extent of that reserve provision, both in terms of personnel and equipment?
I'll let the managing director answer this one.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a driver-to-bus ratio of 1.5 per bus, so that we can always have individuals available when we have situations like you mentioned, sickness, absenteeism, and in instances where drivers are involved in accidents, we have to pull them from driving duties to do investigations and inquiry, and we do have to substitute other drivers. In terms of reserve buses, we do maintain 10% of the fleet for reserve in the event a bus is out for accident or major maintenance work. So those are key considerations.
Let me add, reader drivers, what is the frequency of retraining?
It's too frequent because as the buses are involved in many contacts in the rural parishes. These are not necessarily third-party vehicle contacts, but they come into contact with embankment, with stones, they fall off some compromised road surfaces, and sometimes they're actually stationary and other vehicles passing them will come into contact with them. In all of those situations, we pull the buses, pull the drivers, we do rapid assessment to see whether there was any fault on the part of the driver, whether they could have done something to prevent the contacts, and in instances where we figure some retraining or resensitization is necessary, we ensure that that is done before they are put back into driving duties. So it's happening on a regular basis, ma'am.
Okay. As it relates to using, procuring used buses vis-a-vis new buses when the program started, just from your experience, was there any benefit from the government in terms of benefit to our students from the government making the decision to start out with used buses, one, in terms of time of implementation, two, in terms of just having an experience and being able to do an assessment of the rural school bus system, and based on the time we have operated the buses up to the 31st of March, when maintenance will no longer be picked up by the persons we procure the buses from, have we observed any reduction, even though there are older buses, in the cost of maintenance, meaning that your very first set of costs would have had you being able to run through a bus, figure out all the issues, do your repairs and maintenance at that time, which would make future maintenance in the short term less likely to be required, or future replacement, because maintenance is both just the regular run of the mill and sometimes major work.
Remember
the experience of a trial period, really.
Okay. The experience you have had so far, I think, mostly relates to students transporting the children. We are on time, we are regularly scheduled, we are a safer service. No child is left behind. There is improved student confidence. Parents are now more confident about the modality of student transport. The independent feedback that we got from the Ministry of Education suggests that there's improvement in attendance, reduction in truancy, student safety has been enhanced, and it is actually positively impacting teaching and learning. In terms of the JUTC, it was indeed an experience for us in terms of very rapid transition from policy to operation, us having to recruit, train, deploy, get involved in the old process of retrofitting, equipping, testing the buses, and running them out. We have garnered tremendous amount of technical experiences in-house, which will enable us to maintain a fleet of the sort over an extended period. In terms of maintenance costs for the buses, it has been reported before that the cost for maintenance is included in the procurement contract up to the 31st of March this year. So the company is not carrying any maintenance cost. But in our observation, in our contract monitoring exercise, we have observed that there is very little requirement for parts replacement once the routine servicing and maintenance activities are carried out. So overall, it has been a very good and perhaps I'd say
good information.
Learning experience for us. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good information to have on the trial period. Yes,
I'd
please.
like to also add that the learning curve from the used school buses are that we would have gotten information on the types of buses going forward based on PPC's recommendation. Increased coordination, we need to be more coordinated sectorially, and we would have data in terms of our assessment. And that's one of the takeaway from the used bus, is that before you wouldn't have certain data now because you were not operational. Now that the system is in place, the ministry and the JUTC is in a position to assess those data going forward.
Excellent. And my last is a comment/question, as this is a committee meeting where one can have comments and not only questions. So, the question asked by Member Dawes and Newell combination. When the school bus system was introduced, members of parliament were asked to identify all the school routes in the rural space where they felt it was necessary to have the rural bus service system. In my case, many of the routes still did not get a bus. So the response in respect of the Ministry of Education identifying the routes, I guess they would also have been better placed to say the extent of the number of students who would be utilizing it, and they would have prioritized based on that and the road condition. What I had also done as MP was reach out to JUTC and I'd asked them to do a recce, just drive all the routes in my constituency using the bus and identify what were the issues that caused them not to be able to put a bus on the route. And I did that for regular JUTC bus because some of those old routes no longer have buses, and for the school bus system, so that we would be able to determine if something is too steep, if it is too narrow, what is the problem that is causing you not to be able to provide that service. And through Chair, PS, asking that we continue that across constituencies, along with NWA, with their priority as to the roads that they would like to work on, because our students being educated in rural spaces in particular is going to be critical to Jamaica's future. It is not fair for some students to always be behind unless they are super bright. They are not afforded the privilege of what students in Manchester, in the city, or Kingston City, Ocho City, Montego Bay City have at their disposal. It's a very different experience. So that coordinated approach, especially with new buses that we would not want to see deteriorating fast in the rural spaces, is to push and have that drive to say, policy-wise, twin the efforts at improving the road network with the efforts to have the bus system maintained and our students in the rural spaces getting to school in the way that it happens for others.
Thank you
And
very
so,
much,
Chair,
Mr.
this is not a question. When the session is finished, I would like to raise some housekeeping issues because I find your
That will be
behavior
under
absolutely
AOB.
rude.
That will be
And
under
I
AOB.
find new members not appreciating that some of us sat and listened
we'll
and
deal
learned
with that in
before we
AOB.
started.
Mr. Morris?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I want to personally commend you, Madam PS, and your team for the initiative, because for me, I think it is a great initiative, because in St. Elizabeth, where I'm from, and particularly in northwestern St. Elizabeth constituency, I must tell you that our students are now enjoying a more affordable system, one that is more consistent, and one that is, of course, more punctual, because our students are now more punctual for school, so of course, learning would have improved. Now, my question is, how soon can we expect an expansion of the bus system in St. Elizabeth, and particularly that of Northwest St. Elizabeth?
Sorry. I keep on turning off my mic, apologies. We had an expected timeline of September 2025, but because 2026, sorry, for the expansion, but because we have to go through the PIAB process, you may see us going down a little further. But hopefully, within this year, you will see some expansion of the rural school bus system.
Awesome. Where are the results?
Just stick up in there. Could you maybe just send out something to MPs generally? Many of these MPs are new and were not here when the original consultation about the school bus routes took place. Perhaps you could send out something general to include.
I still have the email addresses. I could.
Sorry?
I still have the email addresses.
For all the
I
new,
could.
yes. So that the newer MPs or the new MPs who were not involved in the original consultation.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, I think that would be good. My second question has to do with where, Mr. Ellington, where the reserve buses for St. Elizabeth are located. And how many do we have in reserve?
And Mr. Ellington, on that, you had earlier in your introduction spoke about a depot in Kingston. But where do the buses for the rural schools, where do they reside, and where's the base for those and the reserve drivers?
Okay, sir. Thank you, Chair. It's a very unusual structure for the rural school bus program as at right now. We are hoping, in fact, we have approval from the board to go and seek basing infrastructure so that we can have a very uniform, secure location in each parish to accommodate the buses at nights, on weekends, and to be able to carry out certain preventive maintenance service, especially in light of the fact that the fleet is to be expanded. But as of right now, the buses are based in maintenance pillars, which are provided by the supplier as part of their contract. So in the case of St. Elizabeth, the buses are based at the Sydney Pagan facility, and reserve buses with a maintenance pillar are up in Mandeville at a major industrial facility there. And this is the kind of arrangement that we have going around the country, for example, in Portland, St. Mary, St. Anne, St. James. In St. James, we are housed at the Montego Bay Metro facility. For the buses serving Kingston, it's serving St. Andrew and St. Thomas, they are based at the Rockfort JUTC depot. And for those serving St. Catherine Rural there at Spanish Town. But hopefully, in the coming months, we will have well-established JUTC-operated minibus depot out there to accommodate the buses and provide a wider range of services.
Thank you. And my final question is, how often do we review the service offer with a view to ensuring that we get the best value for money?
Actually, that is done on a daily basis because we get a daily bus report from our dispatchers and chiefs around the country. There is ongoing interaction with the service provider for preventive maintenance and rapid response to reports of any issues with the buses. And we do have a monthly contract monitoring meeting with the providers on looking at the overall rollout of the contract and how they address all matters relating to the buses. So the process is being closely monitored.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, we have Ms. Lee, then Ms. Burchell, and then Mr. Newell will be allowed to complete his questioning.
Thank you, Chair. I would also like to commend the team, PS, and the team from JUTC for a job well done in implementing this program and ongoingly assessing the system, because students in St. Anne have been benefiting tremendously. I want to ask though, because this came up earlier before rolling out, and also in meeting with constituents and in other areas of Jamaica and so on. So I just want some further updates as it relates, going back to training. I know that the buses are providing safety, punctuality, etc., but as it relates to our students with special needs and disabilities, how is the training going for that, and how are they being accommodated on the buses? And if so, is there anything to ensure their safety and comfort to and from school?
May I respond to the question? Our drivers have been trained to manage students and also to provide the necessary care and support to students with some form of disabilities. But there are two responses I can make to the question. One of them is that where we have students who necessarily have to use the bus and they have disabilities, our drivers give assistance. In fact, some of the buses have come in with ramps that enable a disabled child to mount the bus on a wheelchair. And there are others where the driver will just give some physical assistance to the child. However, there were existing arrangements in place through the Ministry of Education and the PATH program for students with disabilities. The rural school bus program exists alongside that. So it hasn't replaced those arrangements, so those students can still benefit from that facility. Thank you.
Ms. Burchell?
Thank you. Thank you, PS. Thank you, Director. And I must say, I'm happy to be here today to be able to learn from what you've been sharing with us, because there's a lot of information out there that is conflicting and confusing. And this PAAC through 73A gives us that opportunity to really follow the money and see where the value is redounding to the benefit of the students. I must tell you that before I came here, I canvassed the views of some of our principals in Western Jamaica. And being a rural MP, this is very important. So, Chairman, I'm going to ask some questions, and then you can stop me when I'm out of time. All right? I'm going to go back a little. I don't know if this is Director or PS. But from the research I've seen and the information swirling, it is said that the buses entered Jamaica without the pre-inspection certificates, which are normally required under Jamaica motor vehicle import policy. That's information. So I want you to clarify for me, right? Why, if that was the case, why was the pre-shipment inspection certificate requirement waived for these buses? And if they were waived, who waived it?
I'm going to ask CT details.
Okay.
The buses are inspected.
Sorry?
There was no waiver of the inspection report, and when they come in as well, the ITA, Island Traffic Authority, has to certify the buses as well before the JUTC can put them into their system.
So the pre-certification was done overseas before they came here. By
Yes.
whom?
The first set of buses, the JUTC had a team going out with the supplier of the buses, and they looked at the buses to ensure that we were getting what is in the contract. Thereafter, the supplier was expected to ensure that he's providing us with what is in the contract. And when the buses get here, the supplier ensures with the JUTC, there's a post-shipment inspection report before the buses are handed over to the JUTC. And when the buses are retrofitted, the JUTC also, with the ITA, ensure that they fit within our local regulations.
So they would have checked on the mechanics and stuff and
Yes.
diff and all of that before it got here. So the fact that they came means that the JUTC and their inspectors assured the government that these were suitable for us here.
Let me back up. The first set of buses, the JUTC with the suppliers ensured that based on what was signed in the contract, those buses, the supplier was giving us what was required. Having done that, the supplier now would work with those specifications, and so when the buses come in, they would then be a post-shipment inspection.
Okay, so who laid out the specifications then in the contract? Because if JUTC was just checking off.
No, JUTC, when the proposal came, assessed the proposal for the technical requirements, and so would have ensured that we were getting buses that they were satisfied with. The ITA was also involved to ensure, because when the buses were retrofitted, the doors were moved and other things were moved because they would have to be in line with our requirements.
No, Mrs. Cross, if I could assist for clarification, the pre-inspection was to say that the overseas pre-inspection was to say that the buses met the specifications.
Yes.
But I think you're referring to the mechanical inspection
Yes.
for the roadworthiness of the
Like the
vehicles.
diff
When was that done?
I wish you were as bright as ChatGPT.
That would be done when the buses got here, and because the refurbishing had a set of things that you need to do. You need to change tires, you need to change all the aspects of the mechanics that must get the buses out there, and so they would have to be checked for roadworthiness based on the standards of the JUTC.
But that's the Island Traffic Authority. That's the point I'm trying to get. Is the Island Traffic Authority is the
Certified.
agency
Yes.
that certifies them as being roadworthy. That's just the point I'm
Yes.
trying to.
All right, so let's talk about the cost and the value for money. I heard some different figures today, but the program, based on the research I did last night, said $1.4 billion is what it cost us for about 110 buses. Then I heard some other figure here today. I think I'm a little unclear on that. But that initial set of buses that came to Jamaica, what was the average acquisition cost? So including that, you know what you pay them for the bus, but the maintenance package or whatever else you needed, the retrofitting costs. What did it cost us to land and get on the road one of those buses?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member. So the bus cost and freight is $543,455,500. The brokerage fee, $108,691,100. The bus refurbishing, I'm seeing here $297,655,866.20. For maintenance, up to March 2026, we're averaging about 9 million per bus per month. No, not per bus, for all the buses, 9 million. Yes, that maintenance cost is included,
1.44
but we're
billion.
just giving the breakout. So for the 1.4, that is also included.
So, I was trying to
Various clearance fees in Jamaica, $8,151,832.50, and the 15% GCT, $5,298,690.65.
Okay, it's a little confusing because you're giving me individual costings and then lumped in some group costings. I'm trying to figure out what it cost us to
No,
land
the only
one.
group costing I gave you was that the maintenance is included in the 1.4, but I gave you the maintenance cost separately. So if you wanted to know the maintenance cost separately per month, I would have given you that.
I think the question was just what was the average cost per bus to get it on the road operating? That was,
That's
you just take that totals and divide it by whatever the number of buses were.
I would have to divide and do some math and get back to you, but
The 1.44
we can move
billion
on to.
average divided by 110.
Yeah, so that's about,
12 million something per bus.
okay. All right, so did the government do any cost analysis, getting a new bus versus getting this bus? Did we do that and we were satisfied at that time that, and if we did, we were satisfied at that time that this was the best spend for the money, correct?
Yes.
All right. The public VIN, some information again that's out there. The VIN that we saw, some of them said the bus is aged from between 10 to 15 years. Is that accurate?
The average age is 12 to 12 years.
12 years.
So 10 to
Yes,
14 would
average.
be the range, would be a reasonable
10 to
range.
14 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The mileage on these buses. Do you have an average of, how they were running? I'm trying to sell a truck now and they're asking me the mileage. So I kind of want to know how we were doing.
The managing director will answer that. Can you move
Okay.
on to another question
next
so that I can, just for efficiency,
Right.
but you will get that shortly.
All right.
And it was 12.7 million per bus
bus,
when you divide the
12
1.4
Yes,
by
that's why I
100.
said average
Yeah.
about $12 million there, Chairman.
Okay, so given the cost analysis that you did, what would have been the cost had we chosen to get a new bus over that 12.7 million for the older bus? What would have been the cost?
Or maybe we could do it
Could you
another
ask
way.
those questions and we furnish you with
I figure you would have an idea since the
No, but there's
since the
100 new
minister-
buses coming,
Right,
so
since the
let's-
minister has indicated that you're switching from the old fleet into acquiring new buses, I'm sure you must have some idea what these new buses cost.
We have an in-house estimate, but that would be based on a canvas of the marketplace because the new buses would have more general specification than the used buses, because we could not go to market with the specification for the used buses if we are looking at making it competitive. So it would be looking at the marketplace and saying what it is that is there. And for the in-house estimate for approximately 150 buses it was working out at roughly 3.3 billion.
3.2.
Billion for the new?
3.2 billion for 150 new
That was
buses.
what was in the budget, 3.2 before it was taken.
3.2
Billion,
thereabout
roughly.
billion for about 150 new, and it would have cost us something like about 1.4, you say, for the...
So this would have been this works out at 21 million per new bus.
21 million per new bus, based on what you're seeing in the
Right.
And similarly, I imagine a new bus would come with warranties, etc., maintenance, etc.
maintenance package and so on. Okay, all right. So what then informed the policy switch from old buses to new buses?
No, there was not a policy switch. If we go back to when we started looking at the whole business of the rural school buses, because the JUTC and the students within the KMTR, they had the advantage, as one member pointed out, that the students in the rural areas did not have. And so from June 2023, the ministry started...
No, Mr. Cross, if I could just help, it's not the policy of the rural school bus program. I think Ms. Birchall is just asking the policy to switch from used buses to new buses. When did that decision, whether it's a policy or that decision?
And what informed it, and what informed it?
So, if I may, Chairman, what informed the decision to move from the used buses to the new buses is the PPC. PPC would have clearly indicated that we should go competitive going forward, and they should be new buses.
So they felt we weren't competitive with the decision we made before?
I can't say how I would be interpreting their position. I'm telling you what was said in the document.
In the document, okay. All right, so my final question this round. We had the Minister of Education, Dr. Morris, here at Standing Finance Committee this week, and she indicated that we're at about 80% or so thereabout in terms of attendance, school attendance. But the report we got here today is that this rural school bus has dramatically increased the student attendance and truancy and so on. I got very generalized commentary about that. Do you have any specifics, whether from yourself or that you've received from the Minister of Education, that tells you, gives you the confidence that this rural school bus system as is satisfying the need that exists in our school system?
Education and parents.
Just give me a few, let me pull up the data that
All
I
right, while
got
you're
from
pulling
the
up
Ministry of
data,
Education.
I have in the second round, Mr. Newell and Dr. Dawes. You're Mr. Newell, Dr. Dawes, Mrs. Honus. No, PS hasn't answered the question that she was looking.
No, you can continue. I'll get back to that, Chairman.
Okay,
With the
you
data
take some time to get
from, I'm combing through the information that I have here.
All right. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Chair. So just a few questions on security. Can you tell us some of the security features that the rural school bus system comes with? I know there's camera inside, etc.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir. The school buses, they are equipped with features for tracking the buses along route, for speed monitoring, for aggressive braking and cornering, for driver behavior monitoring. We actually have a camera that is focused on the driver. And we have cameras through the cabin of the bus that can monitor student misconduct as well. There are external cameras that can actually assist with investigations in the event that the bus comes into contact with fixed or mobile objects. We are able to monitor the speed of the bus. We have set a lower than normal standard speed for the buses to operate. Even though the speed limit might be 50 kilometers in a particular zone, we give our drivers a slow speed, and we can actually monitor in real time. We can get an alert in our bus operations center if a driver is going above the speed limit, and we can actually make an intervention at the same time.
Who manages the monitoring system? Is it JUTC or do you have a provider?
It's a joint endeavor between the JUTC and the providers who are LHydro.
So the providers and JUTC, and this is housed at
the
JUTC's
Lyndhurst Road bus depot. Yes.
In terms of your parish, I know you have private maintenance providers in some parishes. Can you tell me a little bit about the arrangement? Is it with El Hydro or is it with JUTC?
All the arrangements up to this point for bus servicing and maintenance at the pillars around the country are between El Hydro and third parties. El Hydro will have a contract in place with the JUTC come April 1 for bus servicing and maintenance. But as at right now and up to the end of March, all arrangements are between El Hydro and their third-party contractors.
So come April 1, there will be a contract between El Hydro and the JUTC?
That is correct, sir.
Was this can you tell me a little bit about the procurement, the process for that particular contract?
This is a part of the overall approval process for the procurement of the buses. It actually came with a bus delivery, servicing and maintenance component up to the end of March this year. Thereafter, the JUTC will take over the maintenance costs, and hence we'll enter into a contract with the providers.
You're going to contract
or the
with
same people.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the new buses that you contemplate,
yes,
will a similar, I know they will be dispersed across the country as well, will a similar arrangement be in place with the current service provider, or will you be?
I couldn't speak to that, member, at this time.
That's just another, the $1.4 billion. Does that, just following up on a question that Member Burchell had asked, did that figure include the retrofitting of the buses?
Yes, it did.
So that did include?
Yes, it did.
All right, thanks.
In answering, going back to Member Burchell's question, the data from the Ministry of Education that I have in front of me, student attendance have been increased by 95%, punctuality 90%, student safety 100%, and student off-campus loitering reduced to 10%. That's what the Ministry of Education would have shared with the Ministry of Energy, Transport, and Telecommunication.
Thanks.
Dr. Dawes, Member Dawes.
Congratulations on your elevation, Chairman. Question to anyone, do you know about chicken buses?
What?
Chicken buses.
No.
No?
So in Guatemala, they have these, what they call chicken buses, which are essentially the same used 10 to 15-year-old school buses, and they've made some modifications to them. And two of the key modifications outside of the colors and shortening of the overhang are that they change the transmission and they change the engine to give more power. Now, the terrain of Guatemala, especially where they're going to Atitla and all of these places, they traverse similar terrain as East Rural and other mountainous constituencies. They have found that what goes very quickly, the transmission, and then the engines struggle when they're going uphill. So they move to manual transmission. Have you taken into consideration the fact that these buses were built for flat cities in the US, and that you may have to learn from the Guatemalans that transmission failures will be a significant part of your maintenance bill as time goes by?
Thank you, sir. Among the lessons we have learned is that the buses are best suited for horizontal plains, straight roads where they do not have to do much cornering or hill climbs. And so what we have done in terms of how we deploy them is to keep the longer buses on the plains and the smaller buses in the hilly terrains. As a general rule, the JUTC does not include manual transmissions in its fleet. We go for all automatic buses. So we're not contemplating in the short or medium term any changing out of the transmission system of the buses. What we will do is to deploy them in areas that they are best suited for. And that is why in the specifications that we have put forward for the next tranche of buses, we have made certain recommendations in terms of engine type, where the engines are mounted, the axle weight, the transmission type, and the cooling system so that they are more adaptable to our tropical climate, as well as the kind of terrains that the buses will have to maneuver. But I do take your point. I might do some research on the chicken bus myself to see what they, apart from how they perform, how they look. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Member Holness, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, it was very difficult to listen and get an appreciation of where the question was going in terms of a comparison of the total cost of the used bus versus any information we have in respect of what would be the cost of a new bus for the school bus system. Are we in a position to say, after we have looked at all the costs, what is the average cost for the used bus? And do we have any idea what the average cost would be for a new bus with the specification we require? That's number one. And I was trying to split service and maintenance in my head for a reason. Service is always going to be required for both the new buses, that regular service schedule. I don't want to call it maintenance for a reason. So I would want to treat maintenance more as parts replacement instead of just the changing of oil and filters and stuff. So the old buses, the used buses that came in, I believe you have service and maintenance as a part of the contract for the entire duration. Was there a breakout between the two? And based on your response, Mr. Ellington, it seemed to me you didn't have much in terms of real maintenance work. It was just the regular service. Last but not least, what is the life expectancy of the used buses? And what would be the estimated life expectancy of the new buses?
Thank you for that question. I will answer the cost as it relates to the life expectancy. I'll let the managing director answer the cost on that. So for the used buses, it is averaging roughly about 12.5 to 12.7 per bus. And for the new buses, you're seeing an average of 21.3 million for the new buses. Over to you, Mr. Ellington, about the life expectancy of the buses.
It's ready? Okay. When you speak about life expectancy of a bus, you're talking about things like the engine, transmission, and drivetrain, and the number of mileage that a bus may run before it requires midlife refurbishing or before its full life cycle expires. In the case of the rural school buses, the first tranche that are now in the fleet, these are American-made buses. They come with the, what's the name of the engine? Cummins engine, Allison transmission, the best in the world. They have a life cycle of up to 500,000 miles before they are due for major overhaul or refurbishing. The average age of each of these buses is 12 years. The average mileage that we have recorded for the buses is about 160,000, which means that they are not even at pre-life stage as yet if they are operated under normal conditions and they are regularly serviced and maintained. So the life cycle of these buses, if we care for them the way we should and the way the industry recommends that they are cared for, could be another 12, 15 years under our operating conditions, given the average daily mileage that each bus is expected to run. It's a little bit different for buses that are deployed, for example, within the KMTR, where these are from a different region of the world. The components may not be as sturdy, and engine and transmission components might be different, and hence the reason why they are much cheaper. And we have seen where buses are doing as many as 100,000 kilometers in a year, when the industry standard should be around 30,000, 40,000 kilometers. So it is quite possible that newer buses could expire before some of the older buses, depending on how they are worked, how they are serviced, how they are maintained, and a number of other factors.
Thank you very much for that response, because I had gotten a sense that the used buses we got from the US were extremely sturdy school buses. When you listed the features or benefits of the bus that we procured, I didn't hear one particular area that I found useful. Don't know if it is so, but I do know someone who drove one of the school buses in the US, and he said one of the features, the safety features, was that it had metal panels on either side, heavy-duty metal panels. So if you run into a coaster bus or a highest bus, a child would be far more likely to be injured than one of these buses. Does that feature actually exist in the bus, one? And two, would that feature be in the new buses that we would seek to procure? One of the limitations I would suspect would be that middle section at the back of the bus, which is glass. But I've noticed that the students are seated. I don't know, do we carry students standing as well? Or do we, make the effort to ensure that all the students are seated where they would be safest? And what would be the features for the new buses in that regard as well, in terms of safety? And instead of going back around, I'll ask a question coming from Member Morris behind me. He was concerned about the brake capacity of the buses, given our terrain and climate, where the rural spaces significantly deteriorate and we have hilly spaces to traverse, whether or not you had a specialized braking system that currently exists, and if not, would be considered for the new buses.
I think hand signals from Mr. Morris.
Thank you.
Did Mrs. Holness ask your question, or would you? So you don't have a separate. You also want to ask a question. Go. Yes, go ahead.
My question to you is, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Director Ellington, are you considering that come March 31st, your team will have to take responsibility for maintenance? Have you started to interrogate the data and to kind of develop a pattern where the maintenance issues are, so that as soon as you move into or you take over, then there can be a seamless transition in the maintenance process, and so you would be able to take care of the issues with no problem?
Sorry.
Into the response, a lot of persons still believe the rural bus system is a school bus system. I think we should use this opportunity to remember is for currently the rural spaces of Jamaica. Because a lot of persons ask me, so why are we not getting a bus from Papine to Garden Town? Why Bull Bay doesn't have any of the bus? And I have to keep reminding them it is our system. So we probably need to delve into that a little bit more.
No, I'm not clear on the point you're making. Are you saying that it's not a rural school bus program? It's a broader program?
Rural school bus program, as the name rural suggests. So a lot of persons will still be asking, so St. Andrew East rural, Bull Bay is not rural. You know, Papine to Garden Town Square is not rural. But they're asking over and over, what about us? Why we don't have any of the school buses? And so I'm not sure if it affects other constituencies where,
because
yes,
those routes are served by JUTC already.
So I have to keep going over it and saying JUTC service is adequate. The volume and quality of service, let us know. But STEM now is a rural one and dedicated to those spaces. So I think they should take the opportunity to just reiterate and remind Jamaicans when you're wrapping up what the idea is in having this rural system and why it will only cater to certain spaces.
All right. Since it seems that we're at the end of the questioning, I'll just add one of my own. When you're talking about the suitability and maintenance, the issues to do with the buses having largely given service in urban level areas in North America, the terrain, the hilly terrain, given especially with the larger buses, the overhang, the tail swing, the engine and braking and transmission that were not designed for that hilly terrain. Have we done anything in terms of changing the specifications for the new buses that we're going out for? I mean, I remember buses, we were supposed to have a bus at Prattville Primary, for example, and it bottomed out. It couldn't go up the hill. So have we looked at those specifications in terms of transmission, etc.? Well, I stepped out of the room.
Right. So, Chair, with your leave, may I address your question first, and then the last question posed by Mrs. Holness, and then I'll go to the others. The answer is yes. In the specs that we're doing for the new set of buses, we have considered the lessons learned from this first set of buses, and we have spec'd out engine type, transmission type, where the engines are mounted, the overhangs front and rear, of other systems, for example, the braking system, so that they can actually manage our road conditions better. And in terms of the question that was asked about come April 1, how will the maintenance program go? The fact is that the JUTC will not take over the actual works. The works are now being performed by El Hydro, who are the bus providers, but a part of the first phase of contract is that they deliver, they service, they maintain up until the end of March. They service, they maintain up until the end of March. Come April 1, we will enter into a contract with them for the continuation of what they are doing now. So it's not like we're going to have a competency gap in the continuity of bus servicing and maintenance. I'll go to the issue of it's the metal flat bars you had referred to, Mrs. Holness, and these are not bus life cycle requirements in school buses. They consist of flat bars across the windows to prevent children from hanging their heads out. The frame of the buses, the ribs are closer together so that in the event of a rollover, the buses do not crumble and students do not get injured or killed. the seat configuration are done. In fact, there is a term known as compartmentalization inside of the buses, where the seats are high back, cushioned front and back, and they are close together, because the tendency is for children not to sit in the benches there. And that's, and that member is deliberate, because children have a tendency to use belts to harm themselves and others, and therefore, as a substitute for belt, they do the seat configuration where children can bounce around in those little compartments but do not get injured. Yeah. They do not come with it, none of them. Yes.
I think you're making a suggestion for improvement in the design of the... I'm trying to turn on your mic, but I think too many mics are on. Oh, you're in order.
But I'm not fit.
The bus itself, in terms of the features going forward, how do you traverse the school bus? Spend some time with our children and how they manage to be able to sit and travel in the bus.
You're trying to get this.
And particularly, even non-rural spaces that it's easier to drive, the road is wider. I found the children just sliding on the road. And I thought it was necessary, even if it doesn't have seatbelts, and I agree with that, concept of not having seat belts for children, I believe at the edge of the seat. So you would have the corner of the bus as one barrier to sliding off, but in the center, it should have some sort of rail or something that allows a child to slide and come to the middle, and you still don't fall off the seat of the bus.
It is something to consider, member, but none of the buses that we have...
Turn on, press back your...
Okay. In our research on bus safety features for children, none of them have that feature, and we could do further inquiries to interrogate why it's not there.
All right, it's Mr. Hines has been waiting very patiently.
I still have a question.
You answered the question.
There's one more.
Go ahead.
That I'll just address. It has to do, well, two. One of them is whether these safety features are considered in the specs for the next round of buses, and yes, indeed they are. And the final one has to do with the braking systems for the buses. And we did have feedback from some drivers in one or two rural parishes about concerns over braking when the buses are coming downhill, especially heavy when they're loaded and when
it's called
there's
brake
wet.
fade. Brake fade.
Brake fade.
When you're using it on a long downhill.
Right.
Yeah.
It just starts sliding. And that is something that we are addressing with the suppliers. And again, in the new set of buses going forward, we have made provisions for a different braking system to be installed on those buses. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hines, a final question. We want to allow the staff and our guests to go to lunch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is for the Permanent Secretary. When can we expect the information you promised about informing the Member of Parliaments about the new system, especially for the new Member of Parliaments who were not around when the bus routes were chosen at the start of this new rural bus program?
Just to be clear, you want information on the first phase or the second phase?
All phases.
Well, the first phase can be provided. As for the second phase, we are just doing the PIAB process. Information is not ready to be shared as yet.
Not a problem.
Right. You will recall, PS, Mrs. Hornis explained how MPs were canvassed in the first round.
Right.
And we had asked then that those persons who were not MPs, then Mr. Williams, Mr. Hines, and
That
so
will
on.
be done when we're rolling out. When the buses are acquired, then we would canvass the...
No. If you just allow me. So they want to know, first of all, what exists now.
I said I would share that, Chairman.
And second, they want to know if they're going to be canvassed, so they have an input into the routes that they think that they would like to suggest be included for consideration in the next round.
So let me answer again to be clear. Thank you, Chairman. I will send out what exists in the first phase because the buses are not acquired as yet. We're not at routes, but we will get there. So closer to the time, we're just commencing the process. Closer to the time when we'll be acquiring the buses, we can all canvass the MPs again. Currently, we are just in the conception. It's too early to canvass. Okay, but I'll share that with you, member.
Thank you very much. And the next question is, from a general standpoint, where are the buses for Clarendon stationed, and where are the reserves held? And how can the people of Clarendon, especially northern Clarendon, be assured that their situation will be considered in terms of the terrain and the road network and the horrible states of the road? How can they be considered for getting full access to this rural bus program?
I think that's for Mr. Ellington.
Yes, I will yield to Mr. Ellington with that.
Thank you, Chair. Member, so in terms of the first question, where are the buses in Clarendon based? There is temporary basing infrastructure provided by the supplier, El Hydro, in Maypen. And the reserve buses are based in Mandeville, which is not very far from there. In terms of access to service in northern Clarendon, I'm trying to... No, the question was how will residents in these areas access the service, right? So that is in two parts. One, with the current deployments of the JUTC services going up into some interior townships, that provides transportation for children, and that has been so for some time now. We have maintained that. The second part of the answer is that when the new buses arrive, those routes will be considered. There's something that I needed to say earlier, and that is between the Service Planning Department of the JUTC and the Ministry of Education through its liaison officer in consultation with the principals of schools and with some members of parliament, and that is to be expanded. Most of the routes have already been identified. They have been determined. What we have done in phase one is to service the high priority routes. In phase two, we will be going to the next set in order of priority, which also includes additional buses on some routes currently being served, because some of the routes currently being served, we do not have the type of equipment to fully serve them. With the smaller buses coming in, we should be able to do that. And with the third tranche of buses, hopefully, we will cover the entire demographics of rural students who are in need of public transport.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, just one more, if you allow me, a follow-up. Given that you're estimated to invest the $3.5 billion to acquire the new buses, in protecting your investment and the country's investment, wouldn't it be prudent that you would have had a good conversation with the National Works Agency to ensure that these roads that your new buses are going to be on can facilitate same and will minimize your number of times you need to maintain them and to make sure that they stay operational so you could maximize your output in taking students back and forth consistently and safely?
Route surveys have been done and will continue, and we actually report back to the NWA giving a list of roads that we have surveyed and the conditions that need remedial action for the buses to operate safely and reliably. We will continue to do that as we assess and reassess and as we project additional mobile resources into the area. So it is an ongoing exercise.
I can appreciate that. I would just ask you kindly if we could look very diligently at Clarendon, and especially Northern Clarendon. The roads are deplorable, and they need fixing. Thank you.
I think that appeal is for somebody else. So, in fairness to Mr.
Ellington, I'm sure Mr. Ellington could help me to get it done. Thank you.
I will do my best.
Thank you, sir.
Mrs. P.S., you wanted to make a final?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, then it's left for me to thank the PS and her team, Mr. Ellington and his team. We've had a good, long session, and we appreciate you coming and sharing with us as frankly as you have. And good luck in the rollout of your next phase. And, you know, I can't, it's perhaps not for this committee, but I'm sure when we are coming to the supplementary estimates, I'll be asking you and your team, Mr. Ellington, how you're going to cover the 7.7 billion gap that I saw in the budget estimate. So good luck in that.
Thank you. We're finished with me, Chair. Thank you, though. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're excused. Thank you, members. We're now moving to item 8. Any other business? Could you press your request? Go ahead.
So you made a comment during the session that you were comfortable with my absence because your committee flowed quite nicely. Now, I would like to reiterate that the Parliament purchased a mic system for a purpose, to ensure that persons could be recognized in the order in which they chose to turn their mics on. If we have individuals who are required to present, then it would mean that they would have to keep their mic on, or we would have to use the per mic, as you have seen us do. That is a system established by the Parliament, not me as Speaker, or a member of committee, or as chair. So for you to indicate that this is how you are doing it, as chair, I do have an issue because I observed for my first 2 meetings, I remember asking a question and being rushed, and other members were allowed to go on and on and on and on with their questions. I don't find your fair, and while as speaker in the sittings, there is a duty and a mechanism by which the speaker operates, a different standard set as it relates to committees and what happens at committees. Now, for some members who come here and are disrespectful and rude because they have not spent the time to learn before they start to make their commentary, I would encourage them when the Parliament is having the trainings to come to the training, so that they don't waste time. There are those of us that have spent the time sitting quietly. I remember my first term apart and listened in committees and learned instead of argue with others. All right? And so some fast learners continue to be stupid and use ChatGPT for their questions. Now, Chair, that is a concern for me and for other members in respect of how you recognize persons and how you allow persons the latitude in speaking. As Speaker in the House, at the end of the day, it is usually the opposition who comments, who asks questions, and they are allowed to go on and on and on. Some may not appreciate that it is only under this dispensation that this Speaker allows persons beyond 4 to be asking questions. So many persons are allowed, and they go until they've reached the last. Last term, it wasn't the case. Persons would be cut off after a while. Standing orders will actually address that. As it relates to the chairman's prerogative of asking so many questions at the start of the session, I think that's also a challenge. The chair is supposed to moderate the committee, not be the person who takes over at committees. And so I believe it would be more appropriate, Chair, to have members ask questions, and where you see gaps, where you think you now need to add, as you have quite nicely and rightfully done in many of the sessions, you do so. But at the beginning of the meeting, for the chair to ask most of the questions, I'm not quite getting it. The committee should give the opportunity to members to be able to come forward with their questions, and the chair moderate and interject when necessary. Make sure to note them. Last but not least is the ambit of the PAAC. I just wanted to be very clear in understanding now that we're in budget cycle, when is our next meeting, and would we be going the route of doing an analysis based on actual appropriations, what is spent so far, or are we going to be meeting to discuss estimates? And I ask this based on some of even the questions we had for today's session, because we would have just gone through an extensive budget process where this very same committee would have, along with Standing Finance, analyzed the budget and the budget numbers going forward. Now, normally, immediately or during budget, we would not have been having this session normally. And immediately after you have just accepted a budget, we wouldn't have been doing this session. We would have allowed the ministries, agencies, and Department of Government an opportunity to execute in terms of their spend and policy before we come back to interrogating the appropriations in respect of the spend. So I wanted to have an appreciation from you, Chair, what would be the arrangement going forward in the short term.
The two major topics that we determined to examine, this rural school bus program and the Spark program, I think it's called, the Spark program. These are multi-year programs. They're straddled last fiscal year, and they continue in the coming fiscal year, which we technically haven't started yet. So I think it is quite appropriate for us to examine them. There's no requirement in the standing orders that when the budget debate is going on that the committee doesn't meet. And, but I am happy if you want us to, I'm open, let me say, if we want us to put back our next sitting, which is due for the 25th, if we want to skip that one and go into April to allow the budget debate, since we're all quite intensely occupied during this period, and it would also give the clerk who is new, the committee clerk who is new, a little time to get up to speed. I have no objection to that.
Spark, as you have identified, I do still have a concern in that again, PAAC's mandate is reviewing appropriations. The monies that were budgeted should be spent by the different ministries, agencies, and departments, and how it was. Let me tell you why I'm identifying Spark as a particular one. The committee that handles infrastructure, I get the name of it.
Infrastructure Committee.
The Infrastructure Committee, all right, which is the committee that should take up exclusively road infrastructure, bridge infrastructure. That is what that committee is for.
I think you're interpreting the mandate too narrowly, and Mr. Newell has, on more than one occasion in discussions with Mr. Clark as chairman of the Infrastructure Committee, pointed out that this committee is not limited to examining appropriations. It goes,
This
the
one?
PAAC
Yeah.
It says it.
is not limited. Mr. Newell, perhaps you could just read
two
it.
things, Chair, if I generally have.
I'm going
Okay.
to just invite you, since I see you have the standing orders in front of you.
Right.
To
It is
just
a book
read the
that I've been
relevant
trying
section.
to learn and
No, man,
build
you're
some
doing well, you're
expertise
doing
on.
well.
So it says the 73A says the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee shall have the duty of, and it seems A and B are the only two that it has traditionally, or it is seen to do, examining budgetary expenditure of government agencies and other public bodies to ensure that expenditure is done in accordance with parliamentary approval, monitoring expenditure as it occurs, and keeping the parliament informed of how the budget is being implemented. So those are A and B. But C says inquiring into the administration of the government to determine hindrances to efficiency and making recommendations to the government for the improvement of public administration. I think C gives a
C
broad
is a very broad mandate. But
mandate to look into the administration of.
Even B would provide for examination of these programs that straddle one year to another. We're not like the PAC. We don't have to wait for the appropriations to be spent and then they come and do
You don't have
a
to explain that to me
report.
at all. Administration. When you are reviewing the administration of government, what is it that you take that review to mean?
Well, I believe it looks at just how different government programs are managed. And if you read the entire thing, it speaks to hindrances to efficiency, for example. And so to take today, because you mentioned the JUTC matter, I think it is totally appropriate for this committee to examine whether one way of implementing versus another.
JUTC, you know, the one that I highlighted was Spark for a particular reason.
Right.
Because there's a committee that's supposed to do exactly that, like specific for roads.
But Mrs. Honest, when we look, for example, at the Hurricane Melissa recovery, elements of that straddled many different sessional select committees of this parliament, and it's the nature of the PAAC that there will be some overlap at the margins. While we may not be the principal committee to examine infrastructure, the principal committee to examine education, but in the course of our work, we will overlap the work of those committees at the margins. So
I don't think we can say a program is off limits to the PAAC
I am
based on how this is structured.
The general feeling of the members, as we have discussed what subjects to go on, they have tended to interpret the standing orders as it relates to the mandate of this committee more broadly than narrowly.
Just one more thing though, Chair, as it relates to the, because one of the things I've been trying to understand is just who sets the rules for committees. And as I've said the last meeting, and I'll say again, I think whoever occupies the chair, there should be a level of respect for the chair and that role, just the fact that the role is being occupied. I haven't found much about the microphone system in the standing orders, but what I've found, it speaks the language of catching the eye of the chair or of the speaker. We can decide if the microphone is what is to be used, but Rule 4.6 says the Speaker in the House and the Chairman in committees shall have power to regulate the conduct of business in all matters not provided for in these standing orders. So if the standing order doesn't speak to a microphone system and there's a system by which you seek recognition in another way, it is entirely appropriate and allowed based on the standing orders.
Well, the standing orders allow you to find another way so you can raise your hand. If you recall, when you entered Parliament for the first month, I found some persons behaving as if they were children. Literally, the system was, as some believe there is bias, to have the clerk identify individuals. So I didn't do so as speaker, which would be the same in the chair. Yeah. Instead of me writing down who is first, second, third, and sometimes missing the individual, I'd pass that responsibility to the clerk and deputy clerk to say, you know, peruse the parliament, see what's happening, and you identify the sequence. It didn't work because of members. So the standing orders does not specify that you must use a microphone system. Right. But the microphone system, which allows persons to be identified one after the other in the sequence in which they touch the mic, was one that made it so that there is no human intervention in who is first, who is second, who is third. But so I take no issue if the committee decides that you're going to hold up your hand, and if that is what the chair and the committee, not just the chair,
well, it speaks to, no man, it's in the same, so I deliberately, after I read this, I never took any part in the discussion about whether you wanted hands to be raised or mics to be turned on, as long as I would get an opportunity to participate. So in the same regard, I think the same respect should be given to chair of committee to make a decision in terms of,
so like
because it's a simple decision.
So like
it's in my mind, it shouldn't be taken a lot
that
of.
Chairman's prerogative is such that I'm going to ask the questions at the beginning.
Well, there are ways.
I mean, I don't think we're going to find agreement on this. I think you've read what the standing orders say. My view as chairman is that the mic system does not replace the chairman. The chairman presides over the committee. The mic system is here to serve the committee, not the committee to serve the mic system. So
how you deal with your bias,
we've been going on fine up to now, and you know,
how you deal with your bias?
I really, you know, just allow me to finish. Just allow me to finish. I have tried to be impartial in my conduct of this committee, and the fact that from time to time members on both sides are maybe upset with me suggests to me that I am achieving impartiality, right? And you know, that is something I would commend to you, Mrs. Honest, when you're presiding in the chair in the House. But members, I mean, it's almost 1 o'clock. I think the staff would like to have lunch. I don't think we need to prolong this anymore. Further, you had a suggestion, Mr. Williams? Could you press your mic?
It was working fine, and I don't agree with that. You are, I mean, I don't want to get into your business, but a member was dislodged from this committee because of the same issue.
No member was dislodged from this committee. So please, don't misrepresent.
A member was not removed. Again, on a point of order, Chairman.
That's rubbish. That's rubbish.
The member did not say that. The member never said that. No, he never said he resigned because of that. He didn't resign in the meeting. He did not resign.
Could we, I don't think there's any point in prolonging. So could we settle on the date of the next meeting as April? If we are to, we kind of lose our cycle if we miss March 25th, which I don't have a problem with. So the next available Wednesday morning would be April 29th. No, Mr. You are heading down a path that, you know, you can't speak for another member who is not here. So let's move beyond that. April 29th, can we agree on date of next meeting, April 29th? All right. There being April 29th. Didn't you ask for, you said a break? I'm proposing the clerk has told me the next available Wednesday morning is the 29th. I'm saying, can we all agree on that? Aye? Okay. Can I have a motion for the adjournment? So moved. Second. All in favor? Thank you. The meeting stands adjourned.